So now we have our code running one time, right? So whenever that page loads, it updates, and we see the changes in the time here and the changes in the days, hours, minutes, and seconds here. But we want this to happen automatically. We want the function to be called automatically, not just when the page first loads, which is what we have, that it's called one time and it happens when the page first loads. We want to do it, have an automatic call, and then we actually want to time it. So there's a couple of methods that can help us with this. So one is the setTimeout method, and this setTimeout method, it calls a method once. It calls a function one time, but it's under a delay. So here we call setTimeout. We identify the function. Now notice the entire function is the first parameter. And this, when you embed a function like this, right, that the function is right there and it's to execute right there, then you can even do it without a name. And this is called an anonymous function, where it just uses the keyword function followed by parentheses. And the function is actually just called right when this command is executed. So that's the complete function, including the curly braces and the code that's inside the function. And then the next parameter is an amount of time to delay. And this is in milliseconds. So remember that milliseconds there's 1,000 milliseconds in a second. So when you use 3,000 milliseconds, that's 3 seconds. So notice that this function calls an alert. So if we try this, when we run it, what it's going to do, so here's the function. This is going to, inside this function is where that setTimeout is used. And the way to call this outside function is by clicking on this button. So as soon as we click on it, it's going to call this function, and inside that function, it's going to set the timeout to be in 3 seconds. So let's go ahead and time it. We click on try it, 1001, 1002, 1003, and there, that's that delay. It waited 3 seconds to run that code. And then you click OK, and it doesn't happen again. So setTimeout simply calls it one time, but it's a delayed call. And that's what setTimeout does. Now, if you don't want to put the entire function as the first parameter, you can use a named function as well. So here's a named function where we do setTimeout, and then you just put the name of the function there, and then the delay amount. And so here's that function that does the alert. This accomplishes exactly the same thing, but you're using a named function as well. And we can try that, and it does the same thing. We click on it, it calls my function. My function does the setTimeout. So let's try it. 1001, 1002, 1003, and there it comes up. And again, it only happens one time. Now, there's another way to do it, and it's the way they use in the textbook, and that is to make this a string and then use the parentheses. Because notice that this function name doesn't have any parentheses. And when we call a function, we use the parentheses. But this is not. This is just the first parameter to setTimeout, and it expects just the name. And that's what's being used here. So in the textbook, it looks like this. It has the name, it's in quotes, it has the name of the method and quotes again. So it's a string that has an actual function call in it. So we run that, and now when we click on it, 1001, 1002, 1003, and it comes up. So 3 different ways to use that first parameter, right? You can actually embed the parameter directly in it, or embed the function directly as the first parameter. Or you can call a name function by just using the name of the function as the first parameter. Or you can put a string that is an actual function call, that is the name of the function and parentheses. So 3 different ways to be able to call that setTimeout method. And what setTimeout does, it calls the method one time, but it's a delay. And you specify the delay right there. And that's the setTimeout method.